It was a quiet morning, like any other, but for my mother, it was the start of a nightmare she never saw coming. Mom's garden was her sanctuary, a small, vibrant patch filled with blooming roses, bright daisies, and rows of fresh vegetables she lovingly tended every day. At 75 years old, the garden gave her peace, purpose, and joy. It was where she poured her heart after losing her husband and 3 years of tough times. That garden was her pride, a living legacy of resilience. But one crisp spring day, everything changed. We found a letter pinned to the mailbox. The paper was official, stamped with the HOA's seal. My hands trembled as I read it aloud. Dear resident. It has come to our attention that your garden violates HOA regulations. You are hereby requested to remove all unauthorized plants and landscaping within 14 days. Failure to comply will result in fines and potential legal action. I looked up at Mom, whose smile instantly faded. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed. I could see the hurt and confusion. How can they do this? She asked quietly. My garden, it's my home. I had no answer. The HOA, Homeowners Association, was supposed to protect the neighborhood's value and peace. But for us, it felt like a weapon wielded by people who cared more about control than community. We called the HOA office to plead for an explanation. A curt voice answered, the garden violates the community guidelines. All residents must comply equally. I asked, but which rule? And why now? No exceptions. Please remove the garden, was all they said before hanging up. Days passed, and the letter burned in our minds. Mom refused to remove a single flower. Neighbors began to whisper. Some shook their heads, saying, the HOA has rules. You have to follow them. Others expressed sympathy but were too afraid to speak openly. One neighbor, Mrs. Keller, an older woman with kind eyes, stopped by one afternoon. I'm so sorry, she said. That HOA president is ruthless. She's been after me for years over my rose bushes. Her words chilled me. This wasn't a one-time thing, it was a pattern that we gathered the family to discuss what to do. Mom was firm. They can't take this from me, she said. I'll fight them, even if I'm old. Her strength inspired us. But we knew fighting an HOA was no small battle. The HOA sent another letter, this time with a fine. $250 for every day the garden stayed. That we watched the numbers climb like a debt from nowhere. The stress weighed heavily on Mom's shoulders. She barely slept, her hands trembling as she watered her flowers. The garden was her life, and the HOA was threatening to rip it apart. That I decided we needed help. That we hired a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes. He explained that HOAs have rules, yes, but they cannot violate residents' rights, especially when it comes to personal property and disability accommodations. That he promised to fight with us. The battle was just beginning, and it would change everything. The next few weeks felt like living under a storm. Every day brought a new letter from the HOA, stricter, more threatening. Fines piled up quickly, each one like a punch to Mom's spirit. But she refused to give in. One afternoon, I found her kneeling in the garden, hands deep in the soil, tears streaming down her face. They want to take this away, she whispered. But this garden is all I have left of him. How can I just let it go? I sat beside her, holding her hands. We won't let them, I promised. We'll fight this together. I began talking to neighbors, trying to find support. Some were scared, afraid of angering the HOA. Others were angry but silent. But a few stepped forward. Mrs. Keller was one of them. They think they can control us, she said, eyes fierce. But we have rights. She told me stories of how Marlene, the HOA president, had bullied her for years, forcing her to remove her prized rose bushes for not fitting the aesthetic. Her story echoed our own, a pattern of abuse. At the next HOA meeting, I stood up with a small group of neighbors. We demand fairness, I said, voice steady. This garden isn't hurting anyone. It's a symbol of love, history, and community. The room was divided. Marlene, with her cold gaze, replied, "Rules are rules. Personal feelings don't change that." We realized the fight wouldn't just be legal, it was a battle for hearts and minds. Meanwhile, the financial strain grew. Fines added up to thousands of dollars. The pressure on Mom was unbearable. But she stayed strong, inspired by the support from those few brave neighbors. We documented everything: photos, letters, recordings of meetings. Our lawyer prepared a formal appeal. Then came the surprise: an anonymous tip revealing that Marlene had been selectively enforcing rules, targeting certain residents while ignoring others. This was our opening. We gathered evidence and prepared for court. Mom, at 75, was ready to stand up not just for her garden, but for every homeowner bullied by the HOA's heavy hand. The neighborhood was watching. The battle had only just begun. The courtroom was cold, sterile, and intimidating. But Mom walked in with her head held high, surrounded by family and a growing crowd of supporters. The HOA had brought their best lawyers. They were confident, prepared to crush our fight and send a message to anyone who dared to defy them. The judge called the case. Our lawyer started with a clear statement. This isn't just about a garden. It's about homeowners' rights, fairness, and standing up to bullying. He laid out evidence, letters, fines, the anonymous tip showing the HOA's selective enforcement. Marlene's lawyer argued, the HOA has the authority to enforce community standards. This garden violates those standards and must be removed. But our lawyer countered, selective enforcement is illegal. And this garden is a reasonable accommodation for my client's health and well-being. Mom took the stand. Her voice trembled, but her message was clear. This garden is my sanctuary. It helped me heal after losing my husband. It's part of who I am. The courtroom was silent. Even some HOA supporters seemed moved. Days of hearings followed. Witnesses testified, neighbors who had suffered similar harassment, experts on homeowners' rights, and even a local horticulturist who praised Mom's garden for its beauty and community value. Then came the turning point. Our lawyer revealed internal HOA emails showing Marlene had targeted specific homeowners for personal reasons. The courtroom gasped. Marlene's face tightened. The judge called a recess. Outside, the tension was palpable. Mom held my hand tightly. "We're doing this, son. For all of us." When the court reconvened, the atmosphere shifted. Marlene's defense faltered. The evidence was overwhelming. Finally, the judge ruled in our favor. The HOA was ordered to stop all fines and allow the garden to stay. It was a victory, not just for Mom, but for the entire neighborhood. The courtroom erupted in whispers and applause. Mom smiled through tears. But the battle had taken its toll. We knew this fight was just the beginning of changing a system that too often punished those who dared to stand up. The court's decision sent ripples through our neighborhood. Word spread quickly, the little old lady who fought the HOA and won. Neighbors who once stayed silent started speaking up. Marlene resigned under pressure. The HOA board faced calls for reform. The community began to heal. Mom's garden became a symbol, not just of flowers and plants, but of courage and resilience. Every petal, every leaf, was a reminder that one voice could make a difference. Families who had felt powerless found hope. They started to organize, demanding transparency and fairness. At a neighborhood gathering, Mom stood before a crowd, her voice steady. "This garden was more than a hobby," she said. "It was my strength when I felt weak. I fought for more than just flowers, I fought for respect and justice for all of us." The HOA changed its rules, with residents involved in decisions. The dark days of fear and bullying slowly faded. Our story became a beacon, proof that standing up for what's right matters, no matter your age or odds. And for Mom, every sunrise in that garden was a victory, a beautiful reminder that love, determination, and community can overcome even the toughest battles. The courtroom victory was more than just a legal win. It was a spark that ignited change. Marlene resigned, the HOA board was replaced, and a new spirit of fairness and respect took hold in the neighborhood. But the story didn't end there. Mom's Garden became a symbol, a testament to resilience, hope, and the power of standing up. Years later, the garden still blooms brighter than ever. Neighbors gather there, sharing stories, laughter, and the simple joy of community. At the annual neighborhood festival, Mom was honored. Her voice, once shaky, now rang clear and proud. "This garden taught me to fight for what matters," she said. "To protect not just flowers, but our dignity and each other." The HOA changed its rules, involving residents in decisions, embracing flexibility, and listening to the people. And for me, watching Mom thrive, I learned a truth: no matter how small you feel, your voice matters. Your fight matters. That garden, once threatened, became a legacy. A promise that no one can take away your home, your happiness, or your heart, not without a fight. So, what would you do if your own neighborhood tried to take away something that means the world to you? Have you ever faced unfair rules or an HOA that just wouldn't back down? How far would you go to protect your home and your family's happiness? If you're curious about how people fight back and win against impossible odds, and want to know what really happens behind the scenes in these HOA battles, click right here to watch the full story and find out the answers. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. See you in the next one.